So here we are, finally in these mountains. What did you guys think about that helicopter ride?
Every time it blows me away how close we get to the mountainside. I'm like, surely you can stay away a little bit from there. I obviously have learned that's kind of part of it to protect from the wind. But
I was most nervous because when we had to make one stop before we got into the mountains, and I was waiting for about 90 minutes or so before they came and picked me up. So I was worried about you guys.
Did you think we left you?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't want to say what I thought happened.
There's no way to describe how big the mountains are coming up.
The way I describe it's like a hall of giants. What are you guys' first impressions now that we're starting to trek a little bit? We're getting acclimatized to 12,000 plus feet in the air.
I feel like I've seen this before, but it doesn't ever get easier. I mean, physically, it's cold, it's windy.
The physical needs of what I just have to put in my body to survive up here is pretty overwhelming. And to think everyone else up here is just, this is life.
We're sitting here with filtered water in water bottles. It's pretty humbling, isn't it? Like looking around and realizing there are people who lose their lives pretty regularly as a result of lack of clean water here.
We have medicine that immediately cures what this water may cause in the lives of these individuals, and I don't even know how to process it a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of questions I think we encounter up here, like why, you just don't understand this or that. And then I think the key is we just need to make sure to let those why questions lead to what questions, in the sense of, okay, what does this mean I need to do? Like, I've obviously been given a lot of grace. We've been given a lot of grace. So what do we need to do with the grace that's been given us? If you have a Bible, I want to invite you to open with me to Luke chapter 4. I want us to think a minute about physical need. We talk about this collision between urgent spiritual and physical need. These mountains personify that kind of picture of physical need. I think about different people I've met on these trails. I think about one guy, he's the first guy I ever met on these trails. We walk into this village and this guy comes out and he's holding something over what you think is his eye, and then we start talking to him and he pulls it down and his eye is gone. He had gotten an infection in his eye, and it had basically taken over the whole side of his face. It was basically his face was caving in, and just what happens when you don't have access to medical care that most of us can get anytime we need it. I think about, along those lines, another guy I met named Sijan. He and his little boy, Amir, they lived in a village, or live in a village, that was hit with a cholera outbreak. So basically, cholera, this sickness, illness that comes on pretty quick as a result of usually contaminated water, and it can go through a village just like that, and that's what it did in his village. In a matter of a couple of days, 60 people died in that village. Like, can you imagine in your neighborhood, like over a couple of days, 60 people dying in your apartment complex, your dorm room, wherever you live? The effect of that. Sijan lost a son and a daughter in that cholera outbreak, and then his wife. So he had his wife and a little baby boy, and his wife was so depressed after that. After a couple of weeks, she ended up taking her own life. So Sijan was left with his little boy. I remember hearing about C. John, he ended up passing around his little boy just to other women in the village to try to get nourishment for him. So that's a picture just from not having clean water. What you and I might take for granted when we turn on a faucet, we don't think twice that could easily take out the lives of so many different people. I think about another village. One of the worst byproducts of poverty in these villages is trafficking. So it doesn't take much for a trafficker to come into a village, see a young girl, 15, maybe 10 years old, and go to her parents and say, hey, if you will let your girl go down with me into the city, then I can get her a good job where she can make a lot of money and she can send it back up to help her family. She'll have a much better life down there. And then the trafficker will say, here's equivalent of about $100, kind of as a down payment. And so for a family who's really struggling, who wants the best for their daughter, and traffickers will promise, we'll bring her back up periodically so she can bring money she made, and she'll stay in touch with you. So they take these girls, and those girls are never seen in that village again. They're taken down to the city where they are broken and abused and taken advantage of day after day after day, sometimes 15, 20 customers a day, men just having their way with these little girls. And I can't help but think about, I've got a 8-year-old little girl. It's just hard to fathom being in that kind of situation where you feel desperate enough to say, okay, I'm gonna trust this guy with my little girl, and then never to see her again. And that's what's happening to her. I remember walking into one village. People were out working in the fields, but there were a few kids that were left behind in this village while their parents were out working. And there was a couple of little kids, and one of them was a little girl. She comes up, big smile on her face. She grabbed my hand and just started walking with me. And so I can't communicate, can't speak in her language, but I'm just, smiling, trying to communicate in every way I can. I want this girl to know God's love for her. And so we're walking through. Now, we'd been told as we're walking the trails to be careful when it comes to food we might have in our pack, like snacks, not to just start giving that out. The people we've worked with in these mountains are working really hard to address physical needs, including needs for food, but they found it's best and wisest not to just go in and just kind of hand out little things here and there. That ends up causing a lot more problems, and I totally get that. And so I'm walking with this little girl through the village, and we get near the end of her village, and so we're about to move on, and so I try to let go of her hand, but she holds on to it really tight, and she starts looking up at me, and she starts reaching for my bag, and I can tell she's like reaching for food, snack, and wanting me to give her something, and based on what I've been told, so I just kind of turned my bag and my back away from her so that she couldn't get into it, and she reached again, and I turned away again, and by this time she's still grabbing onto my hand, and I just kind of yanked it out of her hand, and she looked at me. I can still picture those eyes. She looked at me with just these frustrated eyes, even angry eyes, and she tried to spit on me, but she didn't even have enough saliva. It just kind of fell on her own chin, and I just walked away. And I kind of found myself walking fast. I didn't know what to do, and so I think about physical need, and I see even in that last picture a tendency in myself what I'm prone to do in the face of physical need, I'm actually prone to walk away and not do something about it. So I come to Luke chapter 4 and I see this like summary of why Jesus came. In Luke chapter 4 verse 16, he came to Nazareth where he'd been brought up. As usual, he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. The scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. And unrolling the scroll, he found the place where it was written. He could have turned anywhere, and he came to this passage in Isaiah. The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set free the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. He then rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began by saying to them, "Today, as you listen, this scripture has been fulfilled." Like, I read that in these mountains and I think, this is who Jesus came for. Like, he came for the people in these mountains. He came for the poor and the captives and the blind and the oppressed. And I don't claim to understand why God in his goodness allows physical suffering, even today. So right down from where I'm sitting right now, there was a natural disaster not long ago in this area, and things just started falling down the side of this mountain and wiped out an entire village. Like, as we were coming up this mountain, it's like a graveyard. There's so many why questions I have before God. Not that I in any way want to question his goodness or justice, or do question his goodness or his justice, but why is there such physical need in places like this? And why have I not experienced this physical need? Why do you and I not experience this kind of need without help? And so many why questions, but then they lead to what questions. So what does this mean I need to do? Like, how does this mean I need to live? And then that leads me to the very next chapter, Luke chapter 5, verse 12. Because I know the answer for what I need to do is not to run away from need. So then I read Luke chapter 5, verse 12. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man was there who had leprosy all over him. He saw Jesus, fell face down, and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Reaching out his hand, Jesus touched him, saying, "I am willing, be made clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then he ordered him to tell no one, but go and show yourself to the priests and offer what Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them. But the news about him spread even more, and large crowds would come together to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. Like, get the picture. Here's a guy with leprosy. So this horrible physical condition where you can't feel pain, and so sickness just takes over your body. Infections take over your body, and your body degenerates as a result. But it's not just physical need. I mean, it extends to social need. If somebody had leprosy, you didn't get near this person. This was an isolated person, an outcast. You didn't get anywhere close to them. In fact, they had to warn you if they were coming near you. And when people saw a leper, they ran away from them. So here comes this leper, and a pretty bold move, comes up to Jesus, this popular teacher at this point, comes up to him and says, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." So he knows Jesus is able to make him clean. He says, "If you're willing." And you could just imagine, like, the crowds in silence. Like, what is Jesus going to do? Like, the crowds, I say in silence, they're probably stepping back. Like, we don't even need to be near this guy. And Jesus is not running from this guy. Instead, what does Jesus do? He doesn't just say, "I'm willing, be clean." Like, he could have done that. Jesus easily could have just spoken, and this guy is clean just like that. Instead, reaching out his hand, Jesus touched him. saying, I am willing, be clean. Like he doesn't turn from need. He turns to need. And he touches this man who is unclean, and in the process brings restoration and healing to him. But I guess the question is, how should you and I live in a world of urgent physical need? And I think the answer we're seeing in God's word is clear. We don't turn from need. We run to need. We don't turn from need. We run to need. And I think it's dangerously possible for many of us to live our Christian lives and be pretty insulated and isolated from physical need around us. And this is not the Christian life. Like, this needs to change. The mark of a Christian is we run to physical need. We don't turn from it. And you don't have to come into mountains like this for that to be a reality. Like, I think about it, just over the last couple of weeks before coming up here, I was talking with a retired business exec who, he and his wife have moved into a plot of land with a bunch of people who were formerly homeless, and they're helping them get back on their feet. I was talking with a single girl who's working in a refugee community. I was talking with a couple who was teaching ESL. I was talking with some business partners who are working together to get clean water into places where they don't have clean water. I was talking with a guy that's like physics whiz and his wife who are working in the prison system sharing the gospel. I think about another guy I was talking with that is using film to raise awareness about trafficking. Like, the opportunities for addressing physical need in the world around us are endless. I think of one more. I think about a family they have taken to this children's wing in a hospital where it's just urgent needs with kids in the hospital with heart defects and kids who are dying, and they just go up there and they spend time with these families. Like, this is the mark of a follower of Jesus. We run to need. We don't turn away from need. We run to need, and we proclaim good news to the poor. We proclaim release to the captives, recovery of sight to the blind and the oppressed. We proclaim the goodness and favor of our God in a world of urgent physical need. So I guess the question is, what does running to need to look like in your life, or your family, or your church, maybe even your group? I just want to encourage you to even discuss with each other, like, how have you run from need, or maybe just ignored need, because the net effect is the same. We're not running to need. So how has that looked in your life, and what needs to change? And how can you do that even more faithfully together as a church or as a group? I want to encourage you, just think about the mark of a follower of Christ. We run to need. We don't turn from need. So what does this need to look like in your life?